Hello, YouTubers. Joe Kersey here on Tuesday, April 18th at 3:15 in the afternoon Eastern Time. Um, Now, as I detailed yesterday, I was going to be engaged in this funeral situation here today, and indeed I was. Uh, I got home about a little after 1 o'clock. The service was at 11, and I got up there at 5 till 10 this morning. I left here around 9:30. Um, Actually, overall, it went very well. It went very well. But there were some typical things that are always fun to notice, particularly when you kind of expect them to happen. Um, I had indicated that I had printed out the reading uh, for because sometimes you don't know, sometimes they don't give you the reading. A lot of times I'll put it in the bulletin. I'll print out a separate bulletin for a funeral service that actually puts the text of the readings in the service bulletin. You get like a little booklet. Like this. You get like a little booklet, and and you can. But this time, this service booklet didn't have the readings in it. It also had the name of the man's wife incorrect. You can't make this kind of stuff up. Anyway, so sure enough, I got there, and I was not the only one that printed all this stuff out. Now, the fellow I read with, the retired judge, he always prints out his stuff and has done for years, and he laminates it in plastic. So it's like you've got this checklist. He laminates this thing in plastic. It's great. Well, the woman who was doing the Old Testament reading, well, actually a reading from the Apocrypha, from Wisdom of Solomon, she had also printed out her reading. So, when I arrived, I actually got there last of the three, of us who were reading, and all that stuff was up in the lectern. Now, of course, it was sitting on top of the open lectionary book that, which really we didn't need to have there, although I don't mind having it up there. I like having it up there. I think it's a pretty book. You just set stuff on top of it and read. So I had written on my thing. Bill Brooks funeral service. Please leave on lectern, Joe Kersey. Because I've seen, I've had occasions where they just come up and, you put something up there, like a lot of times if you've got one of these passages, it's got all these difficult names and place names to pronounce. I'll write them out phonetically from my self-pronouncing Bibles, with the vowel sounds and accents and syllabification. And somebody will come around and take it off the thing before you go up there. It's just, why would you do that? Well, anyway, so sure enough, about 15 minutes after we got there, well, anyway, Charles, God bless Charles, I saw him. Now the judge and I, Henry and I, had been sort of standing up there, sort of watching what's going on, because I said, what? So, somebody's going to take that stuff off the lectern. And sure enough, Charles goes up there and takes it off. Well, I had a second copy. I was ready for that. Well, the judge swung into action and said, this, we need that stuff. That's what we're reading from. He says, "Oh, I was just trying to make it easier." So he had little post-it notes with numbers on it. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Okay. Well, and then then we saw one of our younger acolyte. He's 16. But he was younger than the woman who's in her 50s doing it. He's really, I've watched this guy. I have watched this guy grow up from about day 7 in church, and he's just, the whole family, the 3 brothers and the mother and dad are just, incredibly great, decent people. And anyway, so he's up there. He's taking all the hymnals out of the chairs. Now, we got chairs, and we all had eventually our little assigned seat names were put on them. And, we'd already been told where we're going to sit, but, then somebody came around and put little seat labels on it. And, but he's up there, he's taking all the hymnals out of the benches. Well, now the judge has one of these combination prayer book hymnal things. I don't. I use the standard hymnals. And I said, give me back one of those hymnals. I said, I'm very familiar with most of this music, but I like to have it. So he gave me back mine, but he took everybody else's. And I thought, do I have time to track him down and put the hymnals back on the chairs? Well, I didn't actually. It turned out so. It seems I'm not the only one that's onto this sort of little type of behavior, because it turns out at the end everybody had a hymnal, so they had to have swung into action themselves, and I wasn't around to see. So we all came in. The entry procession went well, and of course I had knowing that we were going to go outside, where the torches may blow out, these fuel oil filled tanks with a wick coming out of it. So I bring my own little fuel oil tank with a wick, and it's a World War I lighter. You can see there's a wheel, and it goes on there's a flint. There's a series of flints actually in this little tube, and that's the steel on the flint, and then it sparks, and you light this. There's a little wick in there, and then you take off the base unscrews, and it's got a little O-ring to seal it, and then the wick goes through it, and it's a non-consumable wick. It's in one of these well, like the wicks you see in these canisters that have bug oil in them, and they used this in World War I. They called it a trench lighter. It was issued to the military. So I got one of these, and I thought I better take this. I don't smoke. See, I don't have another lighter. I don't have a lighter now. Paul smokes, and he's got these Bics, but I don't want to go ask him for a lighter. And I really ought to go out and buy one of these Zippos. Open and close Zippos. And I might sometime. Well, anyway, so I did use that to light the torches at the back of the church. It took a bit of effort, but it worked. And I'd filled this morning, and I had test fired it a few times to be sure it worked, and it worked at home. So then, okay, so we got all lit up and flared up and processed in, and of course. Instead of using the wonderful language of the original burial service, I am the resurrection and the life, saith the Lord. No, we have to use the dumbed down right to version. I am resurrection and I am life. This is nothing but intellectual vandalism. Why do you deliberately take something beautiful and make it ugly? There isn't a single person out there that doesn't understand I am the resurrection and the life. It doesn't need to be changed to I am resurrection and life. And of course, there's other changes as well that supposedly make it sound more like a committee report. Well, that's what it was, wasn't it? It was a committee report. Well, the judge and I are in total agreement on that one. I've told people that if they don't use the original 1662 burial office over me, I'm going to come back and do something to them. But in a very loving way. So so then the rest of the service went okay. Now we were supposed to do a gospel procession, and well, there's various ways to do that. The plan was that the thurifer, the guy with the incense, Ben did a great job on that. That was great. In fact, Marge, the widow, had specifically said to Ben ahead of time, I want this place filled with smoke. I want this thing to look like an explosion's gone off inside. And so he fired that thing up. It was sparking and smoking and everything. And so he was supposed to go down, and then the crucifer, the cross was going. And then the judge and I were supposed to go down there and stand on either side of the cross, and then one of the woman who did the first reading was supposed to take the gospel book down, hold it for the priest. Well, the Karen, our assisting priest. Well, she read the gospel. Well, as it turned out, Ben tore off and zoomed down there, and Deanna, who read the first reading, she goes over and grabs the gospel book and she zooms down there before the crucifer. Now, in defense of the crucifer, I think Penny was in a reverie about the death of this man, Bill Brooke, and I think it just slipped your mind. Well, Henry and I sort of alerted her, and so she then, in a sort of belated way, and then there's all this eye contact between Charles and Penny. I'm not big on these little slight signals. Just, give a broad gesture so I know what you mean. But anyway, he decided not to do it. So Henry and I are standing there holding these things, and we put them back in they've got this little stand with a hole in it. You stick these things down in. And then we stood there for the rest of the thing. We didn't, So that, it didn't look like too much of a mess up, but, it was a snafu, but a slight snafu. Church occurred. Church happened. So then the rest went very well. The daughter-in-law of this man sung a soprano solo with organ accompaniment, Panis Angelicus. I can't tell you the exact version. There's a number of settings to that. Very, clear, pure soprano. I'm not necessarily a fan of soprano voices, but this was an exceptionally good one. At least she didn't do any of that tremolo stuff. I don't like that tremolo stuff. And then, Bishop Price preached. He's, you know, I've never heard a bad preaching bishop. I've heard some bad sermons from preaching bishops, but I've never heard of, in terms of their style and delivery. Now, turns out this one was completely unobjectionable and, that's not the right word. It was a very good sermon. It recounted his personal interaction with this man over a 50-year period, a 55-plus year period, actually. And his service to the church and other people, and it was just a very wonderful sermon. And his chair he didn't break his chair. We gave him the real sturdy one. Didn't have to reinforce it. He got hot halfway through the thing. He had to take his chasuble off. Well, the man's a big boy. I mean, he sweats very easily, and he glistens. And Bishop Breidenthal, God bless him, did not wear that emerald green thing that makes him look like an emerald ash beetle. He wore a nice, unbleached, coarse weave linen chasuble. It was very nice, almost oatmeal colored, very nice. And say what you like about the man's church politics. He has the most gentle, mid to high range tenor speaking voice when he does the liturgy that I've ever heard. It's like being immersed in warm water. It's like being immersed in amniotic fluid. He's excellent. He's excellent. Now, one thing I like when he does the communion service is when he does the institution narrative, and talks about the bread. He's not one of these guys that holds the bread up to the sky and gazes at it. And he doesn't hold the wine up to the sky and gaze at it like some sort of idol or balloon or spectacle. He holds it even with his face and says, "Here's the bread. Here's the wine." And then he puts it back down on the table. I find that very sound, and I like that. Well, hell, they used to burn people over these kinds of issues. I mean, you got to take it seriously on some level, don't you? So then we processed out, and as I predicted, the torches blew out, and as I hadn't really predicted, but as I sort of thought might happen anyway, out in the wind, my lighter didn't work, and even if it had worked, it wouldn't have made any difference because it had blown right back out again. And the judge's lighter didn't work either. So, interestingly, we didn't do the actual interment. The bolts on the common hole were unscrewed. The urn was sitting on top of the plate over the common hole. This was a Renan urn. This wasn't one of those nice brass. This was a Renan urn. And so at some point, presumably, they threw the man down in the hole, but they didn't do it during the service. Now, I have seen them throw the ashes down in the hole during the actual service, but I guess for some reason this didn't happen today. Well, it may have happened today, but it happened after basically, the bulk of the people went home, I guess. So I think that pretty well covers it. I think that pretty well covers it. what a privilege! What a privilege to be and a humbling and privileging experience to be part of this. As I said, this is a man I've greatly admired ever since I've been there since 1995, and we had about 12 vested clergy turn up and other clergy, and the place was we probably had about the place seats 205. I'd say we probably had around 130 people in there. So that was my experience. By the grace of God, got home safe. The place was safe, and I just wanted to let you all know that. So bye bye, YouTubers.